Hey everybody, welcome back to another installment of our Friday Polar Opposites. Welcome back Annie and CP, who are our longtime panelists. We're going to run things a little bit differently today. We're just going to cover 3 topics, not in debate style. And then we're going to finish it off with a heated debate between Annie and CP about the pros and cons between inflatable mattresses and foam pads. So be sure to drop a comment on which one you prefer and why. But we'll get right off with the first topic, which is what skill are you glad that you know? What skill are you most glad that you know? And we're going to start things off with Annie.
Oh, thanks so much. Gosh, of all the skills that I use in the wilderness, I'd say the skill, there's 2, but I'm most happy to feel really confident about is my stove use and stove repair skills. Because when you want the stove, you want it. And when it's not working, it's really disappointing. And I happen to love getting stoves to work. And so I'm really grateful for that, because I remember the days when I wasn't so confident with a stove, and it was sort of like, if it started to not work, you're sort of like, shoot, now what? So I would have to say stove repair. I'll around for seconds. I'll add my second.
Okay. So CP, what's your skill that you're most glad to have?
Well, it was going to be stove repair for a lot of the same reasons. Yeah.
I'm so glad I went first. I'm so glad I went first.
Yeah, there's nothing like there's nothing like the satisfaction of seeing like a weak yellow flame or no flame at all turn into a powerful blue flame when you're done doing your little bit of repair on it. And it's the difference between, not eating and not drinking on a cold weather trip.
Yeah.
So,
I got in there first.
You got in there first. I'll say high wind paddling, because it just opens up if you're comfortable with that, you can paddle in so many different situations than you would otherwise be able to. And you're comfortable going out there when conditions are a little bit iffy, and they might get a little worse. They might get better. But yeah, the stove repair is definitely my number one.
Yeah, well, I can attest to you being a very good high wind conditions paddler.
Thank you.
You got that one. I didn't have either of those. I think that my favorite skill is knot tying, because I can fix pretty much anything with a piece of rope and the right knots. And it's amazing how many people don't understand knots.
Yeah, Eric, that was actually my second one, because you're absolutely right. Like, if you've just got a little bit of twine or pea cord or sure, if you're, but you can do so much with a knot, and it's like solving a puzzle. Like, out of my knot repertoire, what would be the good thing for this situation? And what I love is when you run into like somebody, maybe a family member, or it's usually people we know, and maybe they're trying to hang a hammock or they're trying to drag something, and you're like, you know what, actually, here's the perfect knot. This is what you need to use, because this was actually made for this situation in particular. It's very satisfying.
I'll give you 2 seconds for each of you to just name your favorite knot.
Trucker hitch.
No, of course it's the trucker hitch, right? But I'm going to say the clove hitch for in a close second.
Yeah.
The munter hitch. The munter hitch is pretty good too.
Well, we'll do a separate session on knot tying later, but we're gonna move on to the next.
Wait! But I want to hear yours.
Mine is trucker's hitch.
Okay, because how interesting that all our favorites, they're all hitches.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't know the trucker's hitch, obviously it's something that you should learn.
Yes.
So what's the worst advice you've ever given to someone about camping?
CP first, because I don't have any bad advice.
Well, it's not exactly advice, but as we've covered on this weekly program before, I'm more of a kayaker than a canoeer. And I was on a river trip with my brothers and my oldest brother's wife. And I gave them a canoe that was best suited for whitewater paddling and not flat water paddling like we were doing for the entire time. So they were just going in circles, and they're good athletes, but they weren't really paddlers at the time. And they were very upset with each other the whole time because they were just spinning around, not doing anything. I felt so bad. My other brother and I wound up taking the boat, and they switched into our boats. But yeah,
can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, my picture is frozen, but I'm just going to keep talking. So go ahead. I just want to make sure you can still hear me.
Oh yeah. Well, that wound up basically being it. And then I felt so dumb at the end of it when they're like, "Oh yeah, well, why'd you give him a whitewater boat?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know.
Why did I do that?
I wish I didn't."
Well, the worst advice that I ever gave someone was, hang on, I'm just adding worst advice you've given someone. My worst advice is to sleep naked if you're cold. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. Somebody once told me that if you're cold, wear less when you sleep. And that is the stupidest thing ever. And, until you know better, you just sort of pass along advice that you've been given before. And you're like, oh, you want to know the inside scoop? Wear less if you're cold. It's just, and that absolutely does not work for me. And I feel terrible to whoever I gave that advice to, because they were probably like, well, okay, I'm obviously doing something wrong because I'm freezing.
That's so funny, Annie. I've heard that too. And at a certain point in my life, I believed it until I slept with more clothes on. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. No, this is having the effect that I thought it would. I'm warmer with more clothes on. Okay.
Right. Totally.
Yeah, totally. I think that the worst advice that I ever gave someone about camping is when I was about to go backpacking with some friends and acquaintances, and I admonished people to not forget anything. I think maybe I should have been more specific, because there were definitely a lot of things brought that should have been forgotten. We were carrying a lot of extra weight.
Yeah, cool.
Nice. That can happen.
You guys keep talking for a second. I'm gonna exit and come back on. Okay, you guys just keep talking.
All right, sounds good. So the next topic is the item that you miss the most if you forget it. What do you think? I mean, I know that you never forget anything, but
no, I never do, Jarrett. Yeah, the thing that it was just a bad moment of realization. It was actually funny more than anything, but I was on a North Pole dog sled trip with our friend Chris Mayer, and we were tenting together. And the very first night when I was taking my ski boots off, I realized that I did not have any other socks with me than the ones that I was wearing in my boots, which were just were just little liner socks meant to get a little bit sweaty during the day, then dry them out overnight. And I just had my ski boots and some tent booties. I didn't have mucklucks or anything warm to put on, so I was just going barefoot in my booties for the rest of the evening whenever I wasn't skiing, basically. And getting into my sleeping bag every night was like jumping into cold water, where you have to like gear yourself up for that moment of shock, and then it slowly gets better. And it was Mayer's entertainment for the entire trip to watch me squirm around, putting my bare feet into this frozen sleeping bag every night. And he got a lot of satisfaction out of that.
Yeah, I think that one might hurt a little bit. How long was that expedition?
I think we were out for about 10 days.
That's too long with only one pair of liner socks and no other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you had one pair of liner socks and no other socks? No
other socks, yeah. And I didn't realize it until I opened up all of my stuff in the tent and was like, yep, I don't have anything else. So that was an unhappy realization.
Well, I bet you already check for your socks now before departing on a trip. What about you, Aaron?
I've forgotten some really important stuff that I'm going to save for another episode. And I'm going to go with some stuff that was less important, but bothersome nonetheless. One simple one is just a hairbrush, because to the women out there, when you get a knot in your hair, it is just so annoying. And all you want to do is get rid of that knot. But I have on occasions forgotten to bring a comb or a brush or like that. But the one that really drove me nuts was when I forgot to bring my camp booties. And so I only had my ski boots. And at the end of the day, you know, you are just so ready to jettison those heavy ski boots for something lighter and something that just makes you, it kind of mentally tells you that your day is, you know, the hard work of the day is done. Well, the physical hard work of the day is done. And I really treasure that transition time when I take off my ski boots and I put on my camp booties, because it's like taking a weight off my shoulders and saying, it's like happy hour. It's like right now, you know, it's time to kick back and relax and enjoy the evening. So I miss those. What about you, Eric?
Toothbrush, definitely.
Oh, no.
I've forgotten my toothbrush before, and I will happily forget toothpaste, but I just can't get by without a toothbrush. You know, I get a nice thick sweat around my teeth after about 2 days, and it's just skiing during the day or hiking, or like I can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah. Do you stop eating gummies when you forget that? Stop eating like shot block gummies? No. Oh, geez.
No. I will just.
Don't you like make a toothbrush out of anything, even a wool sweater?
Yeah, I mean, I end up scrubbing my teeth with something else, but it's just never the same.
Yeah.
So I just keep beating myself up for forgetting a toothbrush. So it's something I haven't done in a few years, but that's because I've done it several times before the last few years.
So do you tell people that you've forgotten your toothbrush?
Absolutely not. No.
Good. Okay, I wouldn't either. I'm not sure I would tell people that I only had one pair of socks either.
Yeah, I can't remember if anyone besides Mayor knew about that.
Oh my gosh.
So let's move on to the topic of the day, which is the inflatable sleeping pad versus the closed cell foam sleeping pad. And I expect a fierce but courteous debate from both of you. I think we're going to.
Did you hear that, CP?
Hear what?
Courteous.
Well, you know, CP, we're going to let you go first so that Annie has plenty of time to hit back hard.
Okay.
All right.
So choosing for you, you're going to be debating the for foam mattresses today.
Okay. That's my preference. That's my preference anyways. Sorry, the sun's kind of changing locations on me here and scoot around. So foam, yeah. What I like about foam is that it's ready all the time. It takes up a little bit more space. Maybe it's a little bit heavier, but the difference is negligible on both of those accounts. And it's, you don't need to worry about any punctures if you've got crampons or ice axes in your gear. And you don't ever have to worry about overnight slowly sinking down from a slow leak in your mattress and then getting cold on the ice or on the ground. And it's just so multi-use. You can use it for at any point throughout the day. If you need to kneel down and fix something on your sled, it's there right and ready for you. And you know, I know Annie's going to say that inflatable mattresses are more comfortable, and they definitely are, but foam mattresses are not lacking for comfort, which is a good distinction, because you only realize that inflatables are more comfortable when you're on them. And when you're on a foam mattress, you're thinking, this is pretty good. I'm pretty comfortable right now. I'm going to sleep well.
Okay. All right.
All fair point.
You've got some good points. To the point about you not, you being comfortable, you don't know what you're missing, basically. You don't know what you're missing when you're on a foam pad. And that's a little bit like, people who are starving will think that the worst food is delicious. But I don't go into the backcountry to starve anymore. I go out to have a really great experience because technology has advanced. And while inflatables were once something that you really had to be careful about. They've improved quite a bit. And so here's I'm pro inflatable. And I have a nice thick inflatable pad. If we were lying next to each other, I'd probably be towering above you by at least 4 inches. And I will sleep so good. Now, you just celebrated your birthday, and you're, as I called you earlier, a young spring chicken. And I'm a young spring chicken too, with a slightly more delicate back because I have delicate features and whatnot. And so let me just tell you how much more comfortable inflatable is. It is so much more comfortable. Like, any position is fine. You don't like get these sore spots on your hip bones in the middle of the night and kind of have to roll over onto your side. It's like every direction you go, it's like, oh my God, this is so comfortable. I feel like I'm at the Ritz-Carlton. Now, you also mentioned a couple of other things. Slightly larger to foam pad. Slightly larger? No. It's a lot larger. A lot larger. We're talking like, 6 to 18 inches long and 6 inches wide. And my foam pad is like about this big. It's about that big. And now that they've got those really handy pumps, like the stuff sacks that you can use to inflate it, it's not even a pain to inflate, and I don't get it damp with my breath. Last thing you mentioned, that if you're skiing and you need to get down on your knees and do something, you've got a pad. I don't know where you store yours, a sleeping pad, but mine is on the top of my sled ready to come out. It's somewhere down deep inside. So while I get that, I think that's not a valid point. And I also happen to carry a half pad for things just like that.
What's that half pad made out of?
Yeah, it's made out of cell foam. That's right. But I do have to carry I carry actually like a strip pad. It's not even a half pad. It's just a strip for things like putting my butt on it, which doesn't require a lot of comfort. But when I'm putting my back on it and stuff like that, why not be comfortable? The technology exists. You do have to be a little bit more careful. You have to know how to repair it if it does break. But I've actually have never busted any of my inflatables, but I have busted Keith's inflatable once, burning a hole through it in Greenland. And I repaired it. Actually, he repaired it, but I watched it. I watched it while I drank hot cocoa.
I didn't know that you destroyed one of your tent mates' sleeping pads, Annie. That's negative points for the argument right now.
Well, we were in a massive storm, and so we were sleeping in a big shelter. And a floorless shelter, speaking of shelters from last week's episode that I won, by the way. But we had this massive storm and we had to retreat into a tent that was a little bit stronger. So there were more of us in the tent than it could handle. And
how closed-cell foam stronger than inflatables?
No, my inflatable was fine. It was his inflatable that had the problem.
Okay.
We were 3 people in a VE25, and we were trying to cook inside because the vestibules had pretty much collapsed with the weight of the snow and whatnot. So it was a little bit of extenuating circumstances, but it was all made good. Plus, it gave us entertainment for a little while to debate about how the pad had become melted, and then to watch Keith fix it. Anyway,
I'm sure that Keith was entertained.
Let me tell you something. We're at the North Pole and we come across a lead, and you have to get across it because the only way to survive is to get across that lead. Doesn't matter if it comes with you, but you have to. Your life is on the other side of that lead. Who's going to be able to inflate their sleeping pad and use it as a little raft and get across that lead? No, not you.
That's absurd.
Cheers.
I'll cheers to that.
Okay, all right.
All right, CP, you've got 15 seconds for a rebuttal.
Well, I was really distracted by just trying to not make jokes about inflatables and towering over someone by 4 inches and things like that. So,
okay, all right.
I'll just say, what's the first thing you do when you get into camp and you're starting your stove after you've pitched your tent or your floorless shelter, or if that's what you're into? What are you throwing down first?
I get my chair out, my camp chair out, and I set it up and I sit down there and really nicely I opened up my inflatable pad and I let the stuff sack do the pumping and I throw it in there and then I dive in on top of it and I go, oh my God, I'm so glad I have this pad.
That does sound nice, but I do wonder what your camp chair is made out of.
A camp chair is a camp chair. It's not a great.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But here's a question, a follow-up question. Before Eric tells us who won, which I think it will obviously be me. Where do you put your inflatable? I mean, we all carry inflatables on the North Pole, and we also all carry closed cell foam because they both have their purpose. But where do you put your closed cell foam? Do you put it under the inflatable or over?
Oh, I usually put the foam on the ice side.
Eric?
Yeah, I do the same thing because I move around a lot, and that foam, that closed cell foam, keeps gives kind of a tacky surface for the inflatable to sit on, and it doesn't move around.
I've just started doing it the other way around. And Eric, I think it was you several years ago who told me, about even doing that because I had never even considered it. But I do believe that it makes me sleep warmer to have the closed cell foam on top of the inflatable.
Yeah, our value of a closed cell foam pad is way better.
Yeah. wait, say that again?
It's way better than just by weight, the insulating property. I mean, I'm not saying that sleeping on just a foam pad is warmer than sleeping on a inflatable pad, but it can be depending on your pad.
Mm.
But if you had two of one and none of the other, which would you rather have?
Foam pads for sure. And foam pads are cheap. An inflatable mattress could cost $200-$300 for a nice one, and you could get a new foam pad every year and not worry about it.
Yeah, thank you, impartial moderator.
On that foam pad. Where's that foam? That foam pad is going to live for like 500 years after both of you die. So yeah, it's cheap, but where does it go? It goes into the landfill. Now, I'm not going to talk about that too much because I don't know what inflatables are really made out of. But I think I would have to choose. If given both two of one or not, or nothing, I think I would have to do two closed cell foam pads because if you put two inflatables, you're really liable to just roll right off of the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Well, as much as we would all like to crack another beer and keep talking about sleeping pads, I think we're going to bring this one to a close. And as much as I would like to punish Annie for having burnt a hole in her tent mate and fellow guide sleeping pad, I think it's obvious that Annie is the winner this week.
Oh, obvious.
She had the fire in her eyes and came out swinging. And so, Annie, what would you like to talk about with your 15 seconds?
Oh, I guess that I'm just going to bring it down to a not joking matter and say that it's Memorial Day weekend. And I'm so grateful to live in a country that has so many great things as we have here in the United States. And that I want to honor all the people who have fought for our freedom and who have given the ultimate sacrifice. So if you're in the armed forces, thank you. And if any of your loved ones have been in the service and gave that ultimate sacrifice, they are not forgotten. So that's my 15 seconds.
Thank you, Annie.
Perfect. Thanks, Annie.
And thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll be back next week, switching over to 2 p.m. Central Time, so 2 p.m. Chicago time next week, Friday. And also next Thursday, you can find on our website, we'll be doing an online polar training session. So be sure to hop on for that, and we'll catch you all next week.
Bye-bye.